Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. I am your host, Leafy Potato, and welcome to a bonus cast. This game also being played in the June Ground Zero tournament. Bonus cast because I couldn't catch it from 0-0. This is one of the matches that Sunny played to qalavan. If you watch some of our previous games, you might already know the outcome of this match, but stay tuned. This position, as we pick up at about the 12-minute mark, looks completely hopeless for Sunny. I promise you this is going to be an interesting game, though. qalavan already having multiple vehicles on the map, tier 1 vehicles, but Sunny still having enough of a militia horde at home that he can't quite be killed. Also having a slight housing advantage. qalavan having immense farm advantage, though, and having insane map control. Honestly, at this point, qalavan making like 3-4 workers here, taking all of the farms on the map, cashing in red and blue's command center farms. I mean, there's not much Sunny can do to stop that, and he'd just start rolling through this game. Sunny, though, will continue trying to expand, trying to get the farms around his command center, or at least the ones that are immediately around his command center, as he continues housing up nonetheless, making sure that his economy is at least growing, if slowly, still growing. We see a vehicle depot coming up in the back of Sunny's base, wants to not just get rolled by qalavan making like 14 light tanks and running them over. So that's a decent plan. No complaints here. Forgive me if my voice sounds a bit hoarse. I just got off of work, have not had time to drink that much water before this cast. I have a fine glass of wine in front of me. And, yeah, Pink Moscato. None of you who are watching this are probably old enough to be able to try that legally, but it's not bad. Sunny taking some farms, meanwhile qalavan shuffling his army around a little bit, trying to get them further forward in the middle of the map, just making it that much harder for Sunny to take new farms. In fact, might just be looking to poke at the one that Sunny just took. Sunny building some static defense around his now upgrading vehicle depot, and this is not a terrible play, right? qalavan's upgrading his depot as well, but Sunny's got the jump on him, so he'll have about 40 seconds of production advantage, so he'll have an extra heavy tank on the field. If Sunny can get a unit out as soon as that depot's finished, he can start pushing qalavan a little bit. He can't remove qalavan out of the position completely if qalavan just retreats back to the tower, because Sunny doesn't have any vehicles outside of what would be his only heavy tank, but that heavy tank can chunk qalavan's militia, and then Sunny's militia can go and deal with the rest of the units. So having that first heavy tank on the field can make your opponent's life miserable, especially if they don't have any air units to help out. Not even the choppers could help that much when the heavy tank's being escorted by militia. We see the upgraded depot is finished for Sunny, and pretty quickly afterwards gets a unit queued up. So yeah, qalavan still not going to have his depot upgraded in a while. Will retreat his units back into range of his static defense, while he uses his workers to take more farms and also house up. qalavan content to just kind of sit back here, right? At this point, you have the higher eco. The longer the game goes, the better it is for you. Refusing to fight your enemy, so long as you aren't losing literally all of your ground and your economic advantage, is a pretty good play, right? Or if you have to fight your enemy, do it in range of static defense. Okay, we have a heavy tank out on the field now for Sunny. Let's see how he uses it. He might just keep it at home as a deterrent. Nope, moves forward pretty much immediately. Almost uncharacteristic of Sunny. Moves forward just enough. Oh, it looks like he wants to challenge the middle now. Okay. He can probably get away with this too. Honestly, like the tower fire is gonna like sort of suck, but it's only shooting at militia for the most part. So long as your heavy tank is able to fire at the enemy's formation. qalavan's defense is so heavily militia right now. If you were to take away all of his militia, which you can do pretty easily with a heavy tank, and then keep yours, I think you can actually just fight this straight up. He doesn't have anything to really kill you with, so you don't have to worry about your command center dying. Not to mention there's a little bit of static defense. Sunny getting upgraded vehicles himself, but qalavan does have his first heavy tank on the field. Okay, so Sunny's sort of missing his window of opportunity to strike back while he's got the tier 2 units, and qalavan doesn't. A lot of static defense in this middle here. It's not even going to put up that much of a fight if Sunny can just crawl through here unopposed, but I suppose that's a difficult opportunity to see, especially if you're not looking for it in the game. It's so hard to see stuff in the game, and it's pretty hard to see it out of the game too. So, not going to blame Sunny for that. Does have 2 heavy tanks on the field, qalavan only having the 1. So, Sunny can and will fight this army if qalavan decides to push. Both players having good tools to remove the enemy's militia. Now it's going to be vehicle via vehicle for the most part. Sunny continuing his housing production after having the 2 tanks on the field. Wouldn't hate, honestly, to just see a hospital from Sunny. Let him move a little bit, let him skirmish with the opponent, see if he can't destroy qalavan's militia forcefully, and then just heal off whatever damage he takes. But housing's a good play too. Especially when you don't have that many vehicles on the field in the first place. If you take an engagement, the losses you're going to be taking are pretty much all militia, and they're going to be getting one shot, for the most part, from Sunny. So healing off a little bit of HP on the 2 militia remaining is not really going to do you all that much good compared to just spending that money on housing. If you had a couple more light tanks or another heavy tank, that'd be a different story. Some choppers as well. Heck, even some anti-air. Anyways, we see qalavan rallying a heavy tank to the front now. So, going to have just complete army superiority again. This is kind of what happens when you have higher eco. The game goes longer. Whatever slight advantage your opponent has will be overcome by just you being able to make more units than they can. Sunny is making another unit from the upgraded vehicle depot. Considering how long it's taking, is probably another heavy tank. And again, just continuing his housing. Sunny very consistently, even if he doesn't have a single farm other than the 4 command center farms that he starts with, he will slowly max and then be able to play a longer game. The longer that you as an opponent to Sunny sit back, the more even of a fight you're going to have to take, no matter how high your advantage is. Right? Even if qalavan manages to hit max, Sunny's got the sort of composition that can at least stall him with adequate healing support, and he's going to be having to fight through towers, and there's, you know, you're fighting a hardened opponent right now, and it's just not easy to break through, no matter how you slice it. And so, yeah, Sunny having a great stally army, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Sunny stalling the games when he has less eco does mean that his opponent can pretty much freely nuke him. But that takes a while, and that takes a lot of discipline from qalavan to, like, hold all of these farms and say, I have more farms than you can possibly have, I'm going to get a nuke first, and I'm going to kill you. Right? If you attack into Sunny, you're going to have a hard time. From watching the past couple games that he's played, Sunny is such a good player defensively. qalavan managing to lose a light tank and a recon over to red space. Sucks to see, but it is what it is. qalavan still has a complete superiority of force in the middle of the map here. And while Sunny could try to walk around the map a bit, he doesn't have any sort of missile turrets or anything around his command center right now, so qalavan can just brute force his way through the static defense if he really wanted to. So Sunny's units have to be close enough to be able to defend the command center too. Hence why you see him just staying with a linear formation, ready to meet qalavan in the most open approach. If qalavan goes around towards Yellow's base to hit SunnySide, then Sunny can just readjust his formation. So, Sunny playing with APM efficiency rather than high APM. Like to see it. We have a defense research going in the back of Sunny's base. Meanwhile, qalavan seems to be done with his housing now, so expanding, taking the red CC farms, just looking to get a superior economy in every way. You already have map control. At some point, you just cash out with some unit HP, especially since these recons that qalavan has won't be doing all that much. Using them to kill command centers is a good way to get some value out of them when they can't really fight heavy tanks. Artillery here from Sunny, aiming to stop qalavan pushing forward with towers. Not that qalavan has been very aggressively pushing forward with towers this game. He's been kind of just reinforcing the middle here. But considering that qalavan is now maxed housing, past a certain point, you're going to start reaching max population. When you do hit max population, there's nothing else you can really spend your money on other than static defenses. So, preemptive move, allowing Sunny to strike at any raw farms, raw towers, raw hospitals, any of the above. qalavan, though, does still have a superior army, selling militia to get some value out of them, since at this point in the game, they're just splash fodder. You will lose pretty much all of them to a couple of volleys. SunnySide moving forward with his tanks. decides just to buy some space for his worker to make more towers, and qalavan sells the rest of his militia for what money he can get out of them. They sell for $4 each if they're full HP, so not bad. qalavan with almost 2-to-1 tank advantage. 2 of his tanks are light tanks right now, but that's just fine. When you're fighting smaller numbers of heavy tanks, light tanks work pretty well. They're just over half the price of a heavy tank, and they do similar single target damage while having the same HP. So light tanks can help you trade well against, like when your opponent has a couple of heavy tanks and you have a couple of heavy tanks and you can keep them all spread out. Light tanks can kind of just act as faux heavy tanks. Hospital going down at the front. qalavan looking to constantly reduce Sunny's position here as he pushes forward in anticipation of the hospital being built. Any damage that he takes in a skirmish here, he can just heal off. He's looking for limited engagements, and he's looking to just do that over and over again. He's got the higher eco, he's gonna have the healing first, and so he'll be more able to take losses in terms of HP and in units than Sunny will. The trick is, Sunny's playing around static defense right now, and qalavan doesn't have any good tools to deal with that. Making an air pad in the middle of the map, trying to punish an over-reliance on upgraded vehicles from Sunny. Like to see it. Choppers are very underrated for late games. Extremely underrated for late games. And people know that they're good in late games, so just, I wanna get that into your head. As flashy as heavy tanks are, and as powerful and necessary as artillery are, I think choppers are just, they're not as obnoxious in late game as they are in the earlier games. Right, early games when the chopper's harassing the crap out of you and you can't hold a farm for your life unless you have choppers to stave off enemy choppers. But in this late game scenario, making choppers forces your opponent to play in a very particular way against you, and having the only choppers in the sky kind of lets you do whatever you want. Your ground army is much more free to move as it's got adequate air cover, and your choppers can go around and harass wherever your opponent happens to be. Okay, Sunny, building his tower forest forward, looking to retake the middle here. qalavan will have to bring an artillery to the front, which he does have rallying forward as we speak. In order for Sunny to hold on to these static defenses now, since qalavan has more than adequate healing for the job, and is still working on yet more medics, Sunny will have to push him out with his tanks, right? Just pure simple. Artillery nearly dies to tower fire, but manages to pick off one. Okay, artillery already getting value, and the hospital with the medic core that qalavan's been building up will serve greatly to help him push forward. You do need the medics past a certain point in order to keep your artillery fighting over and over again, but the medics also just help you fight ground armies wherever you stand. Sunny looking to take a fight here, gets a decent formation against qalavan. Picks off, I think that was either a medic or worker. If that were a worker, that's actually really good for Sunny. Sunny finally getting a hospital, realizing the need. Not pushing too aggressively here, because he's got low HP tanks and no way to heal them. While he could have possibly picked off 2 heavy tanks from his opponent, he would almost certainly be losing some himself, especially when he doesn't have any good anti-air. qalavan now with a pretty sizable air force actually, has double air pad production going. qalavan very satisfied with his ground army at the time being. He's got plenty of tanks. He's got an artillery. I wouldn't hate seeing a second artillery just because it lets you deal with towers that much quicker, and you don't need to buy yourself as much time in order to get concrete damage done. That, you can also have artillery in 2 different places at once, so if the opponent's trying to like build towers around your army, you can have more control over your opponent's towering forward. Right, especially if they have a couple of workers, like if they have 5 workers in a group away from the main static defense that you're engaging, they can start building in depth as you're destroying their stuff. It can be very annoying to deal with. Alright, Sunny looking to make another push here. Wants to get a decent trade. And will heal off with the single hospital. Yeah, this is a dangerous game that Sunny's playing. Manages to keep all his tanks alive, though. It's a freaking miracle. qalavan could very easily have chosen to cash out his Air Force just to get like 2, 3, 4 tanks. If you could manage to get 4 tanks picked off here, that would have been really, really good. You'd have to fight into the range of static defense, and you'd fight against the militia as well, but at this point, you got like, what, 12 choppers in the sky? You could totally do that. At least get the tanks, because Sunny needs the tanks to stop you from artillerying him. And so, like, you have more ability to rebuild your stuff anyways. So like you lose 12 choppers, that sucks. Sunny loses 4 tanks, that's catastrophic, you know. At least that's kind of the logic I'm going with. Then qalavan could just win a straight ground fight, and then Sunny can't take a straight ground fight, versus here, Sunny's actually got a decent formation here. Manages to hit qalavan pretty hard. He's taking a lot of damage though, and only having the 1 hospital and a couple medics. I say a couple, it's 4, but compared to qalavan, who's got 2 hospitals and almost 10 medics at this point, qalavan can heal more than twice as fast. Alright, so we have a bit of a stalemate here. qalavan still owns the map, which is really good for him, and honestly, he's going to need it. Sunny still building static defenses forward. qalavan not quite confident in going for a push here. Sunny still has quite a bit of militia, despite the fact that he's been engaging qalavan in tank v tank combat. Blows traded by players. qalavan loses 2 tanks to start that fight off. Sunny managing again not to lose a single unit in that engagement. Very, very good. If you've seen the last video that I made, this is pretty similar gameplay between the 2 of these players. qalavan will poke forward, and that's great and all, but then he'll lose units, and Sunny will either only lose 1 or won't lose a thing. And if you aren't pressuring your opponent when they're like having to go back and heal, then, you know, you give them the time to undo the damage you have done. Okay, militia getting taken out by artillery of all things. Sunny upgrading his air pad. Looks like he wants to make fighters to keep the choppers from being a massive nuisance to his army. Sunny doesn't really have any territory to be defending right now, so fighters is actually not a bad call. They're very good for army defense, and if qalavan doesn't have any anti-air on the ground, the only thing you really have to contest with is his choppers. Okay, 2 artillery, still shelling away at the position here. Generator getting pretty low on HP here for Sunny, but that's not the end of the world. Sunny's most valuable assets right now really are his tanks and his medics, as is the exact same case with qalavan. Though it doesn't hurt that qalavan owns most of the map and farms. Second hospital will go down for Sunny just to heal that much faster. Hospital heals about the same as 5 medics. Just shy, but it's pretty close. Both players losing vehicles. qalavan losing an artillery. Meanwhile, Sunny losing a tank. Hate to see it. Medics working overtime. Keeping all of these green beams going is ideal, right? They can only heal 3 HP. Medics can only heal 3 HP every 2.2 seconds, and they have to have something damaged to heal. So if you have nothing damaged in front of your medics, you're sort of wasting HP in a way. Right, if you wanted to consider it an economy of HP, where you generate so much HP a minute, right, ideally you want to be shooting at the enemy, and you're going to take return fire when you do that, but you want to be shooting at the enemy and then healing off the damage as you go. It's kind of complicated when there's static defense in the way, because it's kind of hard to deal with the enemy's static defense without committing too terribly much. qalavan's looking to make a general push here. Does manage to snipe a hospital and tag a couple medics as well. Losing a hospital at this point, honestly not that horrible for Sunny. It's more expensive to lose a tank than it is to lose a hospital. The hospitals can be rebuilt, and I'm surprised that qalavan hasn't made his 3rd hospital just yet, but yeah, we'll see where that goes. Sunny starting to lose medics to tank fire, or not medics, militia rather, the other M unit. Gotta be pretty careful here. Don't want to lose the 1 HP tank at the front of the formation. qalavan's trying to pick it off. Sunny will retreat. Not enough though, does lose the tank. Units still getting tagged by artillery. qalavan's artillery being a massive problem here for Sunny. Sunny finding, well, immense difficulty in being able to deal with it. Some of that's just lacking any sort of decent anti-air here, so whenever Sunny goes for a fight, he's being hit by a lot of single target damage. qalavan, though, losing another 2 tanks here. Really nasty damage. Sunny losing militia isn't really even that big of a deal here. It's freeing up his population, and he finally just sells the rest of them. They're left for dead anyways. qalavan rallying more tanks to the front, but it seems like while both players are expanding their armies, they're expanding at about the same rate, despite the fact that qalavan's been making more units, because Sunny's just been managing to clip that many more tanks of qalavan, just taking them out of the fight entirely. 3 fighters already in the sky here for Sunny. Should help turn the tide somewhat against these choppers. Sunny managing to get another artillery. And Qual's got to pull back now. You got to wait for another artillery if you want to keep this push going. You could brute force the towers if there wasn't an army here, but since there is, you really need to watch out for that. Alright, hospital being rebuilt. 4 fighters in the sky here. A lot of healing for Sunny. We've got an artillery in reserve, and a massive battle line of tanks. Both players having significant tank reserves now. The fighters for Sunny, honestly, might be one of the more valuable things in this composition. Now we've got 5 fighters in the sky. What they can do is they deal 11 damage, I believe it's 11 damage every second to choppers, which that's like really specific. We see another engagement going here. Ooh, Sunny, low HP tanks. We got 1 not even participating in the fight. Tank picked off for Sunny, 2 tanks picked off for qalavan. qalavan not standing and fighting. Knows that his units are damaged, but Sunny's are equally so, and a tower manages to snipe one of Sunny's tanks as well. So trading 2 and 2 is good for qalavan. He's got the higher eco. He can afford those losses. But as I was saying, 11 damage per second. It is single target damage, but that's fine. If you can be tagging the enemy's choppers, they're either going to be falling out of the sky very quickly, A, or B, they're going to be being healed by the enemy's medics, which means the tanks aren't. And if their tanks aren't being healed actively by their medics, then they start dying very quickly. Right, so fighters overall, pretty good choice here. Sunny choosing to use his artillery to poke at some towers while he can. Will have to pull it back, won't be able to get another couple shots off until the rest of his army is healed up here. Sunny with a decent enough medic count now. qalavan finding it very difficult to engage into Sunny. Sunny managing to start creeping his towers around the side of qalavan's force here. And this is kind of ideal. This is what you want. Be pretty careful though. If qalavan has artillery, you don't want to be pulling back to an exposed hospital, because this hospital is going to be getting shelled and every unit around it is going to be taking damage. Alright, we've got a massive fighter line here for Sunny now. Should be able to screen out qalavan's fighters and make them mostly irrelevant. qalavan having an upgraded vehicle depot at the front lines, it makes sense. You don't want to have to constantly be rallying artillery from across the map anytime you lose one. qalavan keeping his artillery stocks pretty low as well. When he hits max, and I think he is maxed already, you lose an artillery, and that's the only moment that you can start replacing it. Right, you have to wait for it to die. Looking to shell at the units here. Or looking at the shell at the hospital, rather. Both players trading blows back and forth, sort of as you'd expect from a tank late game, which is the correct one. Alright, qalavan getting good healing done. Should be ready to fight. Both players about ready at the same time. Got the artillery from Sunny, managing to get some damage done. qalavan's artillery a bit exposed here, gotta be careful. qalavan with the higher tank numbers, though, is relevant. Sunny, again, with only 2 hospitals on the map, and the second one far away from the front lines. Maybe as a hedge, but it's not a horrible idea to have your hospitals close enough that your formation can get healed at the same time whenever it pulls back. Even if it's like each hospital only covers half of your formation, just let it all heal. Sunny doing a decent enough job of pushing qalavan back to the middle of the map, at least. But this is still a very delicate game. You gotta be on your toes. Here we go. Ooh, decisive tank engagement. I say. A lot of choppers knocked out of the sky, actually. A lot of choppers knocked out of the sky. Sunny loses a tank, qalavan doesn't, but he's losing his air force pretty quickly. Frees up supply for more tanks on the ground, which is great and all. And Sunny doesn't have any anti-tank units in particular. His entire anti-tank strategy really is make towers to deny them space, and then just hit him with your own tanks. qalavan trying to get his artillery in a decent position. Will have to pull back. Yeah, you're starting to get surrounded here. Sunny pulling... Okay, I respect it. Sunny pulling back. Doesn't want the decisive engagement, although I think a decisive engagement there could have at least picked off another tank and artillery on both ends of the formation. Sunny, though, aware that he does not have as many tanks as Qual. I wouldn't hate seeing choppers be made at this point, honestly, from Sunny. Just to have something to shoot at his units once your fighters have done their job, but we see Hornets instead. Interesting play. Fighter Hornet, it can work against an enemy who's using choppers as their main form of anti-air, but only really in late game. And we just see brutal trays from both sides. qalavan losing the majority of his tank advantage, and Sunny also taking pretty heavy losses here. Both players having to sit back and lick their wounds. qalavan with almost no air force to speak of now. I will say, if qalavan manages to start making anti-air, or if he decides to start making anti-air rather, anti-air will shoot at Hornets before they shoot at fighters, because Hornets fly closer to the ground, and every unit in NRTS will shoot the thing closest to them. So, fighters are pretty much always further than Hornets, and so Hornets will get shot first, and Hornets don't have that much HP, so you need to be really careful around enemy anti-air specifically. Around enemy choppers, you can kind of just use Fighter Hornet just fine, and they'll stack on top of each other like they do, and the Hornets will shoot at the tanks, and the fighters will shoot at the choppers, and life is good. But, yeah, you gotta be really careful as soon as they're anti-air on the map. Alright, still going with Hornet production. I don't hate adding a couple Hornets to the formation, but you gotta be really careful, because Hornets don't fight almost anything, unless that stuff can't shoot back. Right, if the Hornets are shooting at artillery, medics, tanks, they're great. As soon as something's shooting back at the Hornets, you really would rather just not take the fight, because you lose them so quickly. They only have 70 HP, which is less than half of what a tank has. Sunny losing 3 tanks here. qalavan losing just as many, but Sunny not having as many tanks means that qalavan has a tank advantage. All Qual has to do now is sit back near his hospitals and heal up. Sunny not really ever having the opportunity to just shoot at qalavan's units. Will get a Hornet knocked out of the sky by tower fire. Bit of a misrally. Hate to see it. Qual adding 3 more tanks to his formation and a 4th one on the way. Yeah, this is the power of having higher eco. Sunny's having to choose between whether to make air units or make tanks. And at this point, Qual can just replace his losses so much easier. Qual getting a decent formation here against Sunny. Neither player decisively engaging. Sunny's medics get tagged. Hate to see it. qalavan continuing with, or not making more choppers, but keeping his choppers off of the front line. Actually, no, making more choppers. Interesting play. I think for Sunny, probably doesn't hurt to sell a couple fighters right now, just because the opponent doesn't have that much in the way of air units. And even with 5 fighters, you can put the hurt on enemy choppers, while making fighters as well. Wants to fight for air dominance. Now's about the point where selling some fighters and making some anti-air can start making sense. If your opponent goes chopper fighter, anti-air can just get that much more value, because the fighters are usually just an escort, right? Fighters are usually just an escort for the air units that want to shoot at the ground, whether that be choppers or whether that be Hornets. As soon as you're relying on fighters to be your anti-air coverage, you turn your entire strategy into have a better air force than your opponent, and then you get attacked by stuff on the ground that shoots at your fighters for free and shoots at your ground attack vehicles for not so free, but pretty close to free. Anyways, anti-air starts getting better when the opponent starts making fighters. Ditto for if they start making Hornets. Okay, qalavan managing to push Sunny back a little bit, establishes his position again. He just has way more units. He's going to still struggle to deal with these Hornets, though. If the Hornets aren't getting shot at by static defenses. Yeah, Sunny just needs to move his whole force together. Keep the fighters on top of the Hornets, so that enemy fighters will fight fighters, not Hornets. Yeah, you don't want to get your Hornets picked off here. Sunny losing a couple tanks and artillery. Not great. qalavan pulls back, will continue to heal. Alright, and we are 40 minutes into this game now. Very interesting. We see Sunny moving forward with his Air Force exclusively. Very dangerous gamble. Moving into range of static defenses with fighters and Hornets is like the worst feeling thing you can do. Especially if there are enemy fighters shooting at your Hornets. Yeah, you need to put your fighters in front. Have them soak the damage. Your Hornets are there to deal damage to the enemy ground forces, not to fight the enemy air units. At this point, just taking the moment to put your fighters in front is a godsend. Right, especially if the enemy's anti-air is fighters, then you just fight fighter v fighter. And then, like, have that be the spearhead of your charge. Losing 2 Hornets, trying to make a poke. Because the static defenses were shooting at the Hornets, not at the fighters. Sunny lacking a lot of the tanks that he needs. We'll be losing tanks here just because qalavan's got that many more guns forward. He's got more than 2-to-1 tanks to Sunny. So like Sunny's only hope here really is spread the tanks. And when you spread the tanks, you need to use really good air cover to abuse your formation. Yeah, and there we go. 1 tank on the field for Sunny is not going to cut it. qalavan losing a lot of tanks as well himself, but again, like once you get to the point where you've got 6 more tanks than your opponent, that means a lot more when your opponent only has 1 than if your opponent's got 8 per se, right? So having 14v8 isn't as much of an advantage as having 7v1. Alright, Sunny making more static defenses and is making an air pad. So looking to transition completely into an air force is a dangerous game because suddenly you stop being able to touch static defenses and you are less able to hit the opponent in the artillery. And then again, if you start relying too heavily on air force, then anti-air becomes ridiculously profitable. Sunny charging forward into range of static defense again. Loses another Hornet. And at this point in the game, you need to not be losing units. You need to be trading with your opponent, just stalling them for time. I think making more tanks would have been the better call than making the air pad. Just to get your front line back in some shape where you can annoy the crap out of qalavan. Right? If he's got a lot of tanks, but you've got a very thin, but like well-spaced line, you can do a static defense, or you can do splash damage to him, and he can't do any splash damage to you because you're spaced, right? And then you just have to have close proximity to hospitals and medics, and then you're fine. Okay, so almost 43 minutes in this game. Sunny's in a real bad place now. Is starting to make air units. He's making choppers, in fact. And it looks like we're going Fighter Hornet Chopper as the composition to win this game. Vehicle Depot is still making units, but I don't know where Sunny's getting any of this money from. I'll be real honest. I don't understand. We see the air units moving out without any tank support. There are a lot of enemy tanks to be shooting at. Sunny does manage to get a fighter. That's good. You need way more than just 1 fighter at this point now. qalavan can probably make a fighter every 15-ish seconds. Actually, probably more than that, but we'll say 15-ish seconds right now. He's got the map control. He's got a lot of upgraded farms around the map, and Sunny's not been able to contest them so far. So we see qalavan losing his air control again. But artillery is still shelling away, and static defenses are going forward here for qalavan. Static defenses are getting a lot of damage done. Fighter sitting in range of a tower, hate to see it. Need to have him in range of your hospital now just to undo some of that damage. In range of 2 towers sucks even. Yeah, Sunny losing a lot of air units here. And if you're gambling on Air Force to win the late game, you've got to have units, right? You can't be losing them. Sunny reduced to 6 fighters and a cohort of other miscellaneous flying things. Does still have his medic core, so that's not nothing. And does still have a couple tanks, so qalavan can't just advance for free, because his tanks will get splashed and then be shredded by air power. Honestly, at this point, yeah, just the artillery push is qalavan's best hope. You do an artillery tower push. And the air units from Sunny here will fly forward and attempt to get some damage done on Qual, but trading a fighter for fighter here isn't great. And doing single target damage to an opponent when they have 20-something medics it's very difficult to get damage done. Splash damage is so good because it just overloads the opponent's ability to heal their units so quickly. Versus single target damage, when you pay for a unit, you only get a certain amount of DPS, and you can very easily just have enough healing to sit in it. Versus with splash damage, you have to be very aware of how much splash you're taking and know when to pull back. And so tanks allow you to take very light engagements and or very decisive engagements. Versus with single target units, you pretty much are all or nothing. Yeah, as we see a little bit of harassment here. Sunny taking the losing end of that fight, and he's just trading units faster than he can make them at this point. Right, it takes so long for Sunny to make a fighter and a chopper, and he's losing one every single time he fights. And now qalavan's just going to push forward, because what's Sunny going to do? Sunny has to engage. Pulls back. Wants to keep his tanks at decent HP, but the medics have been healing the air units. Yeah, and if you get too close to the enemy artillery, if things get really nasty for you really quick. qalavan continues fighter production now. He smells blood in the water. He thinks that he can beat Sunny at his own game, and that's the entire gambit that Sunny was playing, is I'm going to have more air units than my opponent can deal with. Sunny decides that he wants to sell his command center. GG. Very well played. And yet again, another game where the opponent can't kill Sunny. Only Sunny can kill Sunny. He's the king of defense. What can I say? Qalavan says he's so bad at late game. I don't even think you're bad at late game. I think Sunny's just that much better. But yeah, Sunny, if you can give him an army to fight with, my god, can he fight. I think his main weakness is he'll give the opponent map control and then not fight against it. He's very passive, but if you attack into him, he's in his element, right? He's gonna have a hard time. Anyways, if you've watched all the way to the end of this, thank you for joining me for this bonus episode. There will be more content tomorrow. So, yeah, look forward to that. Also, Saturday SmackDown will be going on later on in the day that this uploads. So, if you're interested in playing Saturday SmackDown, there's a link to the Discord in the description. You are more than welcome to join. Please read the rules before you post anything, though. I am sick and tired of having to point people at the rules page after they've broken one. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to stay classy.